You're all adults. You can handle the truth. Not you can't, you can.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the Funky Brain Podcast. My name is Dennis Berry, and I'm super excited and honored to introduce Dr. Gerry Goldhaber this morning. How are you, Dr. Gerry?
I'm doing just great, Dennis. Hope everybody's staying safe and being well in Colorado.
Yes, and I know you are at Ground Zero in New York City, and you're safe and isolated as well, I'm assuming?
Yeah, working remotely. For me, personally, I work a lot at home anyway, so it's kind of business as usual. Go out and do my bike rides and stuff like that. But still, it's terrifying when you go out and you don't see anybody in the streets of New York.
Yeah, I know. That is kind of crazy. And we'll talk about that in a second. So for those that do not know, Dr. Gerry is our nation's leading safety warnings expert for the last 42 years. He's the author of 11 books, and we'll talk about his 11th one, which just came out this week. And he's been seen on ABC, NBC, CNN, and lots of other places as well. And he's the publisher of the Goldhaber Warnings Report, which is in its 11th year and reaches over 10,000 lawyers nationwide. And so your latest book is called Murder, Inc., and it has a longer title after that. And what is that?
It's called Murder, Inc., and to differentiate it from me being a mafia hitman telling the truth, and I'm not that, so anybody out there, don't put the contract on.
We're in New York City, so we're...
yeah, and I don't go to Sparks Steakhouse, though.
But Goldhaber, I don't know about Goldhaber.
Yeah, maybe the Jewish mafia would take over. But the book is called Murder, Inc., How Unregulated Industry Kills or Injures Thousands of Americans Every Year, and What You Can Do About It. That's the long title. And most nonfiction books, Dennis, you got a short 2 or 3 word title and then a gazillion words, ... afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And in the summary on the bottom here, it talks about how the book features the 7 most common behaviors in our lives: residing, eating, working, playing, traveling, healing, and communicating, and explains how, due to the lack of safety information, each of the 7 can either injure or kill us unless the safety triad of the government, manufacturers, and consumers follow the steps of the principled disclosure. So what is principled disclosure?
Well, very simply, it means tell the truth. What a radical idea, Dennis. Yeah. Tell the truth. Tell it like it is. Right now, you and I and your listeners are dealing with a half a deck of cards. It's like going into a war with one arm behind your back and being told to take aim at the enemy. We can't do that because we don't have the information. We're playing with half a deck. What do I mean? I mean the information about the hazards that may or do exist in every product that we buy or use. Virtually every product has some downside risks to it. And we make decisions every day. Do we buy it? How do we use it? And so on. But we're making those decisions with one arm behind our back. That's why I say it's a half a deck of cards. How did we get there? 2 reasons. Corporations who make the products, they don't want to tell us. Now, this is not some big conspiracy theory. This is the truth. This is reality. Reality is that companies, since the beginning of time, have felt that if they tell us what could go wrong, right, what could go wrong, that we wouldn't buy their product. As we talk about maybe later, it's just not true. There's no evidence of that. In fact, the evidence is the opposite. Watch Governor Cuomo versus President Trump on coronavirus. When a guy tells the truth, we take it. It's the opposite of Jack Nicholson in the movie A Few Good Men. He said, you can't take the truth. In this case,
handle the truth.
We can handle it. That's the thing. We've all got our big boy pants on. We can handle the truth. But back to this thing. So you got one, the corporation won't tell us because they're afraid and they're putting profits over safety. Very simple. Profit over safety. Second, and the second reason we only play with half a deck is the government. We look to the government regulatory agencies, and they're supposed to look out for us. Guess again, they don't. They're not holding the corporations to task. And why not? It's called the revolving door. What's that? I had my research team check it out. 68%, that's 2/3 of all government regulators since Genesis. We went back right to the beginning of all regulatory agencies, the Consumer Product Safety Commission, EPA, OSHA, and on the list goes. the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, that's all things cars and trucks. We went to every government regulatory agency, and we found that 2/3 of the regulators either came from or went to the industry that they're regulating. And in some cases, the revolving door hit them in the ass coming and going. So because you've got a revolving door and a corporate culture that places profit over safety, together, you, the consumer, we, the consumer, are left on our own. And when we're left on our own, we got to do the heavy lifting and become more informed. And my book is a book about how to become more informed as consumers so we can protect our loved ones and ourselves from serious injury or death.
That's awesome. Well, you're clearly passionate about it, I could tell. But, and I two questions, well, not really questions. One of them is, I think that I agree, first of all, 100% wholeheartedly. And I teach a lot of that stuff myself. And I'm working on my second book called Funky Health, where I talk about a lot of that too. And I think that a lot of it comes from marketing, from what we do. We do marketing. Marketing is designed to create urgency and designed to tell you things that are going to make you want to buy this product. And so my question for you is, I agree with everything you just said, and it's a huge problem about the honesty and everything like that. Do you think it's ever going to change?
Not without a major shift in culture. Right now, we've got a culture that values profits over safety. Everybody wants their share, their thing. Saturday Night Live, that old routine, I want my stuff. Well, corporations are just the same. I want my stuff. They've only been answering to one stakeholder, their shareholder. They've forgotten. There are many stakeholders. There's their employees, their customers, the environment, the communities they live in. It's no longer a static relationship between you and your stockholder, your shareholders. You've got to be concerned as a corporation. Will it change? I don't know in my lifetime. I think there's a movement. Unfortunately, it's been more about a paper movement than a real implementation. Last summer, the Business Roundtable, which is made up of 160 or so corporate leaders from around the United States, headed by Jamie Dimon of Chase Manhattan Bank, they came out with what they call the do good resolution. It basically said what I said, that you're answerable to more than just, I looked at the signatories. I've got it here somewhere in my messy desk. It's outrageously hypocritical. You got companies like Johnson & Johnson that signed onto it, that basically is in their knees on litigation dealing with baby powder and talc and the link to ovarian cancer. They're in there, and they're running positive commercials on television saying, we're more than just a baby powder company, we're about everything. And, their answer to their hazard is PR. So will it change in our lifetimes? Not without a lot of fight from consumers. Erin Brockovich wrote the introduction to my book, and we're talking about it. And she said, basically, that's her life. Her life is a life of consumer advocacy to fight greedy corporations. And it's a tough uphill battle. Ralph Nader's still around. He's in his 80s. And there are people like Russell Mokaber, who does the Corporate Crime Reporter. There's still some people. I like to think I'm going to be a consumer advocate, part of that movement, to get companies to change. And by the way, my message is not warfare, Dennis. At the end of the book, I've got, after those 7 deadly sins that you mentioned, I've got the safety triad, which is really 3-legged stool. It's the corporation, the regulator, and the consumer. The 3 of us have to work together. And what I'm offering the corporation is very simple. Hey, guys, we've all made mistakes. I'm not here to shoot you. I'm here to help. And it's okay to tell the truth. It's okay. You don't have to worry. Companies who tell the truth, and I've got many examples in my book, they do even better. People value good corporate citizenship. Secondly, if you won't believe me and your public relations people, at least look at your accountants. You spent last year, collectively in the United States, $1.3 trillion, and that's every year. It's over $1 trillion. Put it in perspective, that's about a little more than half this current stimulus bill that passed yesterday in the Senate. $1.3 trillion is being spent on liability lawsuits, products liability lawsuits, not other lawsuits, just products liability. for your listeners, that means a product liability suit is when you get hurt or killed or your family represents you when you're dead. That's because the product you used led to your injury or death. It's called product liability. That accounts for 1.3 trillion corporate dollars to defend them. An average lawsuit can cost $500,000. That's just average. Some of the big ones can cost tens of millions of dollars to defend. So save the money. All of them have a failure to warn claim. So if you put the failure to warn claim to bed by telling the truth, that will save you a ton of money. So that's what I'm telling the companies. Join us. Don't fight it. Become a part of it. That's what your business roundtable resolution said. And all I'm saying is, my book just happened to come out a few months later, and I'm saying, please do what you said you do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. One thing you said was the honesty. And like when you talk about like salespeople, I heard this once about 10 years ago, and somebody said to me, when you talk about salespeople go in, and in some cases they hide the truth, and so they say, well, the most successful salespeople are actually honest to a T, so when you're presenting something, if you're honest about it, but at the end of the day, we're talking about dollars. You're right. The consumer is involved there. So what are they buying into? If they are being honest, are they going to sell as much? So,
they'll sell more. I've charted this with all the clients that I've been involved with, all big-time companies. I've changed their safety culture, changed their warnings approach, and they've made more money. They come back and they say, you were right. And I said, well, what took you so long? Okay, so we're now doing it. I'll give you an example. When you just said something very important, you said the salesman will go in and try to shade it and hold back, maybe even lie. I call it even stronger. I say the corporate prime directive is to lie, hide, deny, and obfuscate. And I have a great example, two great ones, and one with your health concern right up your alley. But the first one is a drug called Regulin. This is in all the literature now. Regulin, I believe is how, or AN is how it's spelled. Regulin, it was one of these antacid drugs, or one of these acid reflux drugs for GERD and so on. And when taken over a 90-day period, no problem. Tends to work for acid reflux. When you extend it, the company that made this initially discovered there wasn't enough money in a 90-day prescription. You had to go beyond 90 days to make the money. And they decided to try to convince, emphasis con, the doctors who prescribe it that it was okay. How did they do it? They went to some Nebraska, I think it was Nebraska or Kansas, literally a country doctor who treats these patients. And they said, hey, doc, we'll give you, I think it's 25 grand if you just collect the data on your patients over a year on this pill. They said, sure, that's all you got to do? Yeah. And then we'll write it up. He said, well, I don't like to write. He said, don't worry. We'll write the article for you, and we'll give you another 25 at the end. So a year later, they go back to this doctor, and they said to him, you got the data? He said, yeah, but I haven't got time to look at it much. But, I said, oh, doc, we'll analyze it for you. And we'll even write the article. And the doctor just said, will my name still be on? Oh, doctor, don't worry. Your name will be the only name on it. This is a true story. So the article comes out, and he never sees it, never gets a copy of it. There's a graph in the article, and that's the whole point. They published it in a most obscure pharmaceutical journal they could find. They didn't want anybody to know it. They just wanted a publication with a graph. The graph showed a flat line after 90 days, meaning no negative side effects. They take the graph and sell it to the doctors and say, hey, look, here's the graph. And if a doctor asks for it, well, that's private, because you can't give evidence of a recommendation to go off-label. And beyond 90 days was off-label against what the FDA said. So the guy turns up in a deposition years later, and for real time, and I'm reading the deposition, the doctor has shown the article. He says, hey, you? Yeah, that's me. Well, they published it. Well, I'll be darned. That's nice. Well, did they pay them? Oh, yeah, I got both checks, but I never saw the article until now. Really? Would you mind taking a look at it? This is real time in a deposition. And Dennis, I'm laughing, but I'm reading this. I can't believe it's happening. The doctor looks at it, and he says, oh, that's fun. That's me. But there's a typo here. Oh, really, doctor? What's the typo? Well, I looked at the size of the sample, and I gave them records for 1,200 people. It says here it was only based on a study of about 400. So they must have made a mistake. It should be about 1,200. Really, doctor? So the deposition, the lawyers, you gave them 1,200 people, and they only published 400 or 500? Yeah, well, that's what it looks like. Maybe that's a mistake in a and on and on. But don't worry, I kept the records. I've got a copy of the other, of all of it, so we can fix that, right?
Right.
Yes, doctor, we can sure fix it. Turns out the 800 they didn't use, pharma who analyzed it, the company, the 800 they didn't use were the ones that showed bad effects. So the graph went up and not flat. That's as corrupt an example as you can imagine, and it happens all the time. They just made the data up, or in this case, withheld the right data, and Vioxx, it was the same thing. I got another example in your alley, too, sugar. You've talked about this, I know. Yeah. Sugar is public enemy number one.
Absolutely.
In our diets. It's hiding in plain sight, the amount of sugar that we get, because the industry does not want you to know what you're drinking or eating. They absolutely don't want to know. They want you to know. Why do I know that factually? Because they're speaking to you in Greek when you speak English. What do I mean? 95% of the American public does not understand the metric system. That's the FDA's own surveys. So only 5% literally speak Greek, if you will.
Interesting.
Isn't that fascinating? And guess what? You look at any nutritional label, what's it in? It's in metric, grams.
Milliliters.
I have a Coke somewhere around here. Hold up a bottle of Coke. It says on it 48 grams. Actually, it's up now. It's almost 60 grams in a 20-ounce bottle of Coke. Well, that doesn't mean much. You look at a number, you say, well, it's probably a lot, but I don't really know. What if I told you that if you divide it by 4, because it's 4 grams to a teaspoon, that means you've got 15 teaspoons, that's 60 grams in one Coke, 20-ounce bottle, and that's their biggest seller. 20-ounce bottle of Mountain Dew has 67 grams, which is 17 teaspoons of sugar. I once gave a speech to a bunch of scientists, and I took a cup of coffee out. I don't even drink coffee, but I was pretending I did. I said, wait a minute, I want to pull out some sugar. I pull out my 5-pound Domino's bag. I go 1, 2. By the time I got up to 7, they're groaning. And I just kept going. I ignored them. I went all the way up to 17, and then I pulled out my Mountain Dew, and I said, voila, same thing. Yeah. So they hide it. They don't want you to know.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I'm putting that in those types of facts into my book as well. Because I think it was on like an infomercial or something about 15 years ago or so. And I think it was Mike Anderson. Maybe you'll remember. It was called Eating. Food is actually what's keeping us sick. It's actually the thing that we need to survive is actually making us sick. And in my opinion, and what I talk about is how this goes back to the Great Depression, where we had a growing country, growing exponentially, that was starving to death. So when we came out of that, we started making food. We were like, we have to make sure that this doesn't happen anymore. And so we started creating food and preservatives and sugars and all these different things that keep your food shelf stable. And so the foods that are actually keeping us alive are also killing us. And a lot of it is, I think, because of a lot of what you talk about, the disclosure. So people don't actually know what they're eating, and it all comes back to money. The big corporations. If you think that we have debt now, and you think we're in a lot of trouble financially as a nation, wait until you take away some of the products that are killing us. And if you take McDonald's out of the picture, if you take a lot of the canned foods and the things that have sugar, Coca-Cola, out of the picture, we're going to be in real trouble.
Or we can tell our companies to come up with a religious moment, a spiritual moment, and say, how can we stay in business? What's our new model? What's our business model? You want to go back to the Depression, go back to cavemen. Why are plant-based diets starting to catch on? That's what the cavemen grew up with. They didn't have Coca-Cola. They didn't have sugar-processed foods. They didn't have high-fat, high-sugar, high-sodium foods. They ate the plants. That's and right. Then later on in fire, they discovered, there's some animal thing we can do. That was their downfall when they went to animal fat. But I'm a big believer in plant-based diets. And if your listeners are interested, there's a great movie, a documentary. We're all stuck at home now. Go to Netflix and download Game Changers. Just came out last year. It's a fantastic documentary. I've forgotten the Olympic athlete or one of these athletes who narrates it, but You get a lot. The Tennessee Titans credit their plant-based diet, which eliminates sugar, salt, high fat, animal protein, and so on, with their getting to the playoffs this year. So it's a very recent film. And Arnold Schwarzenegger makes a cameo and all that. But the point is, industry, you're 100% right. They're hiding it. That's why I call the corporate prime directive: to lie, deny, hide, obfuscate. And in sugar, I'm not through with sugar yet. It's public enemy number one. Yeah. They hide, not only hide the amount of sugar between grams instead of teaspoons, which everybody's grandmother told us what a teaspoon is. So we all know that. They don't want you to know it in teaspoons because you will stop drinking Coke. I hope. I can't. I'm not the warnings nanny. My brand is the warnings doctor. I want to give you prescriptions to lead a safer life in a dangerous world. I can't be there knocking your door to see if you turn the prescription in and follow it. And I don't want to do that. It's America. Choose your vices. Choose what you want to do. I would think if you saw you were drinking a Coke that had 17, Mountain Dew with 17 teaspoons of sugar, you at least might think twice. But at the very least, you're now informed, and hopefully you'll make the right decision. The other thing about sugar, until recently, the FDA changed the nutritional label because I was an advisor there. They actually were hiding behind as many as 55 different terms, disguising what sugar is. 55, we counted them. I mean, words like high fructose corn syrup, evaporated cane juice. My favorite one is mannose. I'm serious, that's one of them. Mannose, God knows what that's. But they hide it. That's a way for them to have put sugar in without you even recognizing that it was sugar. But in case now they have to do it in one term, added sugar. They can't hide it. But they still hide it because it's put in grams. And most of us don't know grams.
Sure. Yeah. So this is great. I want to shift gears a little bit. So you're clearly, this discussion clearly establishes you as knowing what you're talking about here. So what's going on with this COVID-19 coronavirus? What's fact infection? What have you discovered? Have you done a lot of research on this? And, aside of what we're hearing on the media, because the media is designed to keep us in fear and panic. But what's the truth?
You're right about the media, and I have to admit that being a part of, as a commentator with CNN, I've noticed that in pitching stories, I was more likely to get on the air with a more, I don't want to say sensational, but a more emotionally appealing story. Yeah, call it what it is. Sensational stuff sells, right? And when I was in Buffalo, I had a radio show for 30 years on WBN, and a good buddy of mine was the longest running TV anchor, Irv Weinstein, passed away recently. And he said, if it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
And people were more interested. I had friends in Toronto that would call me up and they said, is there anything left of Buffalo? I said, what are you talking about? According to Irv Weinstein, the city's burned down by now. Yeah. There's fires every night. I said, no, I don't think so. But if it bleeds, it leads. And that's a mentality we have to move away from. What do we have to do? We have to listen to President Anthony Fauci and President Andrew Cuomo. We have a co-presidency now. Andrew Cuomo of New York and Anthony Fauci, who's writing in Science Magazine, who's interviewing, and he's telling it the way it is. It's a delicate balancing act because we need Anthony Fauci to be there for us. And if he gets too much embarrassing Trump or publicly disagreeing with him, he'll have to resign or Trump will make him resign. So he has to be careful. But he's the voice of reason, of science, of medical health that we should follow, along with Governor Cuomo, because as Governor Cuomo is saying it, he says to us, you're all adults, you can handle the truth. Not you can't, you can. And he tells it to us. I'm living in New York City. I'm not in terror. I'm not. And computers and phones and whatnot. And I do go out for walks and bike rides, but it's a serious issue. And everyone I know is taking it extremely seriously. And we know there'll be a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not going to come by Easter Sunday. So let's get rid of that myth. Don't pay attention to the prophets who are giving us false information, false prophets, I call them. And we know who they are. We don't need to get on there. But you have to just pay attention. Focus like a laser beam, Dennis, on the scientists, on the health authorities, on those public leaders like Andrew Cuomo, who really are relying totally on science and medical facts. They are not relying on wishful thinking, happy talk, and political ambition. That's not their motive. And their motives are to save lives. Now, I differentiate Mayor de Blasio from Governor Cuomo because the mayor, and I'm not judging him, I'm simply saying I understand where he's coming from. He's the mayor of the most infected city in the world, the city with the highest growth rate potential, and he's scared. And it sometimes comes through in his voice of panic almost. But you don't need him to sound that or look that, because I saw a nurse today from Mount Sinai Medical System, one of the best in the city, holding up she posted her picture of herself in a garbage bag. That's where it's come to. That's where we are. So where are we with this coronavirus? This is, from my perspective, the biggest warning story in my lifetime. It's a story of warnings. Warnings followed and warnings ignored. And we have to make a decision about ourselves, what we as individuals are going to do. And the reason I mention this is because we go back hundreds of years as a culture, basically to the Revolutionary War, where we became known as we evolved as a nation of rugged individualists, from the terrorists that made up the ragtag Continental Army who fought the British from behind trees and rocks, and the British are marching in their Germanic style, and we were just attacking them from the trees. So we were rugged individuals. We were always very creative, and we kept coming back. Obviously, Washington himself has a history of coming back. We're getting decimated, and then he came back. So we have a history of that. There's nothing wrong with it. And that's created our entrepreneurial spirit, which has seen the growth of great businesses and ideas, even today with the digital economy. Those are just individual entrepreneurs who decided, from the creators of Apple and Microsoft. These people are entrepreneurs. We are entrepreneurs all of our history. But that's great. But when that entrepreneurial spirit, rugged individual spirit, tips too far on the scale towards the me, I'm the individual is me and I'm the only one, that's where we may have a problem with the coronavirus. Because most important thing we have to tell our listeners, and this is the truth, your health is my health, and my health is your health. And so we have to think about we, not me. And that's where we have to go back to that rugged individualism. I'm a rugged individual, I'm an entrepreneur as you are, but I recognize with great humbleness, humility, that I'm basically a product of my team. I'm nothing without my assistant, my research team, my colleagues. We work together as a team. We value each other, we listen to each other, we like and hopefully love each other. We work together as a team. As a culture, we need to do this with the COVID-19, because our warnings cannot be defining us as two women fighting it out for a roll of toilet paper in Walmart. It can't be defined by a 19-year-old teenage boy drunk as a skunk on the Miami beach saying, oh, if I get it, I'll get it, and all that. He can't, because that 19-year-old drunk kid has a grandmother and a mother and an uncle, and they have friends in the senior ages. Your health is my health. My health is your health. As the Three Musketeers said, all for one and one for all. They didn't say, it's all about me and I'm about me and that's it. They didn't say that.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. Well, I think we is the answer to a lot of things. And then the other thing that I think is interesting, and I was kind of talking about this last night, I'm curious about your opinion on this, is we're coming from a place, whether it's the morning, and we're talking about fear and panic again. We're getting these warnings on our cell phones. We're getting politicians or whoever standing up on TV and saying, don't go outside. You're not allowed to do this. You're going to kill people, this and that. And then my thought was, it goes back to your point of honesty. What if we said, we're suggesting, what if you take a little bit of compassion in there too and tell why we're not supposed to go outside? What if we said, stay inside, and here's why? Because you may not get sick. This could be minor because you're not in a high-risk group, but you could carry it and hurt somebody. And this is why we're saying you need to stay inside, so collectively we can kill this thing together.
I couldn't have said it better. Keep going. That's great.
Yeah, and that was my thought. It's like, let's say why, not just. I mean, think about yourself. I mean, you're a tough dude, and I know me. Like when people tell me not to do something, I want to do it just because. I'm going to do this. So what if you said, don't do this because this? Because we're a team in this we're in this together, right? Nobody's being singled out. Nobody's being punished. This isn't being done to you. We're in this together, and together is how we're going to get through it. And here's why we're doing this. So I think explanation, like making it clear why, will change a lot of things.
I think we have to start thinking in. We see this. I got to tell you, we see it in New York, and the city is empty. It's a ghost town when I go out for my walks and my bike rides. And I do that so I can meet my son halfway. He comes down on rollerblades from Harlem down to the Intrepid, and I bike from my place in Chelsea to the Intrepid, and we sit on park benches apart. I want to hug my kid. I know I can't yet, and he knows he can't, because we don't know who's infected. The mayor says expect half of us are going to have it before this is over. I could have it, but I'm in good health, and God willing, I will continue to stay in good health. And if I have it, I'll deal with the symptoms as minor. My son might have it. There's a personal level. My daughter's a rabbinic school student in Boston, and she's now all of a sudden being taught by some elderly rabbinic professors who have never probably seen a computer, let alone deal with remote learning. She said, I've never worked harder, Dad, than I am now with the in-home learning. And I said, well, look at the good side. Mom's there, and she can help you. And Mom then goes into the classes with her. So it's so good to have, and you have to think of things. And there's a Greek Stoic philosopher, Epictetus. I believe I pronounced it correctly.
Yes.
Thank you. I worked on that. Thank you to Google. I was able to learn the pronunciation. We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them. We can't choose what happens to us, but we do have the choice. I mean, we can jump from the Greek philosopher to Nancy Pelosi, and she's always fond of quoting, I think it's Benjamin Franklin, the times have chosen us. The times have chosen us. You're correct, Dennis. We didn't choose this, but it's here for us. Our times now have chosen us, and we have to ask the question. And it's a serious question, Dennis. I couldn't be more serious. How will we respond to these times? Will we become a toilet paper hoarder or a drunk teenager frolicking on Miami Beach? Or will we choose to become more about the we, more about the team, more about the community, more about recognizing that the most beautiful words you can utter this morning are, how can I help you? How can I help you? Make a phone call to somebody you're thinking about. Maybe you haven't talked to a family member in 10 years, 5 years. I got a phone call in college. Now, I'm 76 years old, right? I was back in college this was when I was a PhD student in the 1960s, late 60s. And to earn money, I managed a rock and roll band. Drugs, sex, and rock and roll. You look at them. And I had a 6-person band called the T-Bury Scandal. We were bubblegum music for the name T-Bury, and we used the T-Bury Shuffle, which was actually Herb Alpert's Mexican Shuffle, and we used it to throw gum out. We actually were sponsored by the gum company. It turned out Clark Gum made T-Bury, was owned by Philip Morris. Who knew? And we're throwing gum out at the audience. That was our shtick. I didn't even want to think about the sugar in the gum, but forget that. Don't look at the man behind the curtain here, right? So I get a call from John Chrysley, who's the organ player. I haven't heard from him in over 50 years. And he just called to see how I was doing, how I was feeling, how's things going. And we chatted for almost an hour. It was such a wonderful trip down memory lane to back in the day when we were, playing for the fraternities and sororities, and we did a Midwestern tour and we're in various states. We're on CBS even. We played at a gum convention, a candy convention of all sugar. Oh, Dennis, I gotta tell you, our band was the lead entertainment at the National Candy Association's convention in Boston when. All right, so I found religion. Pardon me?
The irony of who you've become today.
I found religion.
Right.
But that's what we have to do. We have to, and when John called me, I felt great. All right. And I said, well, John, it's been 50 years. He said, I know this virus got me thinking about who are people that I wished I'd spent more time with and talked to over the years. So do that. Challenge yourself. Ask yourself. This is no time to worry about who you have grudges against, or who would you like to talk to that you haven't talked to. It's a great time. And we can do, if you're afraid of using a FaceTime or a Skype, then make a phone call. If you're afraid of doing that, then send an email, approach people.
Yeah.
We've got an enormous amount of technology at our disposal, but my recommendation in health-wise to your health and wellness concept, let's not use this opportunity to justify more computer time and more game time and more plastic communication. My one book I wrote, my 12th, which hasn't never gotten published, maybe I'll resurrect it now. I find the manuscript. It's called Warm Flesh Beats Cold Plastic. Someone pulled the plug.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
I wrote it 30 years ago, before anything. And I was saying I used to do work with Marshall McLuhan, who was the guru in the 60s, and said he and I were business partners, actually, and really close friends. Our families were together. And he's talked about the medium as the message and all. And before anything happened, Marshall predicted that the television, remember, there's no computers in the 60s and 70s. And he said, the paper boy will be out of business if we don't get a handle on these new technologies.
Yeah.
40 years early, but the computer now has literally replaced, any newspaper editor will tell you that. Print, forget it. If we don't have a digital version, we're toast.
Well, they're going out of business. The ones here already went out of business. But I love what you said about reaching. Like, I did a podcast episode last week about what we can do to stay calm and healthy during this time. And one of those, I think it was 10 things on there that I said. And one of them is we need that human contact. So what you were saying is, like, reach out to somebody that you've not talked to in a while. And I put a reminder on my phone to go off every morning to reach out to 5 people that I haven't talked to in a while randomly, and just do that. And that produces what's called the happy chemical, the serotonin in our brains. And it keeps us calm. And I think that we're all living in fear. And if you keep living that way, that emotion takes over. And you continue to live in fear. And fear makes you sick. Not just like, it doesn't just bring on the anxiety, it makes you physically sick and unable to perform. So that's why, and I continue to talk throughout that episode about, wake up, create purpose. If you don't have anything going on that day, make something happen. Call somebody, create a schedule of something to do, give yourself purpose, and then talk to people. We need that human contact. I think we're living in the best time to be alive, where we are stuck at home, we're isolated, and we can still have meaningful conversations like this, eye to eye. That's amazing.
You used the word purpose, Dennis. That's important. The times have chosen us. What will our purpose be as we rise to the times? Will our purpose be to hoard and be greedy and to be fearful and to panic? Or will our purpose be to give comfort to others, which will comfort ourselves, as you said so eloquently? If we can ask ourselves, and I know we would use the technologies when we have to, but one technology we should bury is cable news. Turn it off.
Totally.
You don't need to listen to cable news' death count and stock market ups and downs and all the numbers and scare tactics. Turn it off. Please turn it off. If you want to use the medium of TV or something, download an old classic movie musical. At night, you know what, I used to go into bed and I meditate, and if I really want to watch something, I turn on an old episode of either Jack Benny or The Golden Girls, which is running on I forgot the TV network that carries all this stuff. And you'll just really relax and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, it's mindless entertainment. I do the same thing. If I'm going to watch TV, we rarely watch TV. People are like, did you watch the season of this? And I'm like, when did you have time to watch a whole season? And how can you even stay awake? Like we watch Schitt's Creek. And so it's been entertaining and fun. But after 2 episodes, I'm like, I'm about ready to go to sleep. And it doesn't matter what time we start it, but I can't binge watch. But if I put the TV on, I want to be entertained, and entertaining isn't watching fear, watching death counts, watching the stock market plummet and my future falling in the gutter. That's not entertaining. I want to break from that. Like, you're not going to miss any of that by turning the TV off. Every time you turn your phone on, you're going to see some of that. And if somebody dies or the death count goes up, one of your friends is probably going to call you and tell you anyway. So there's no need to like stay tuned into that all day long.
You ask where this is going and what's the truth about the future. I'll give you the best of science that I know as of today. And I'm not a soothsayer. I don't have a fortune-telling ball here, but I've listened and read the science as best I know. And I believe that we're looking at a 6-month event at least. I don't think anybody who knows the science thinks anything less. At the outer end, the worst case scenario, we're not looking at more than a year, and don't get nervous. This will end. It is an easy virus. The science is on our side. The coronavirus is easily going to be treated. We know how to treat it. We know how to defeat it. And the only difference is we have to go back from that 30-minute, 60-minute mentality from TV that at the end of the hour, we'll be there. This is not an episode of The Apprentice where we say, maybe it will, maybe it won't. Tune in tomorrow and we'll find out. And by Easter Sunday will be the season finale. No, it won't. No, it won't. I'm telling you the truth. It's going to take a few months. The Olympics canceled in July. Remember that, folks. Major League Baseball is probably going to cancel the season. Or they may go to that one year they had the strike and they had half a season. I don't know how well that'll go in these days. But you're probably taking lead from your sports franchise that you all love. They're canceling events well into the future. There's no way the Olympics in July would be canceled if they didn't realize there's no way they're going to put athletes together. So you look at the sporting events, you'll know the truth. But if you don't believe the science, look at sports. Science is on our side, though. There is a positive to this. It's going to end. It's not going to end on Easter Sunday. Keep not secluded, keep isolated from other people by 6 feet or more. Do that. But by the late fall, early winter, we'll have probably some treatments, and then a few months later, some vaccines. Why do we have to wait? And I had a guest on my own podcast, and that guest was Dr. Josh Sharlin, whose job at the FDA when he was there was to develop the research protocols for vaccines. And he explained that it takes months to test. You can't use this drug they're talking about. Well, they, as the president, is talking about some miracle drug. That miracle drug has just killed 2 people who drank it thinking it would save them. Killed the husband, and the wife is on critical care right now. It is absolutely an untested vehicle. Treatments must be tested. Tests take time. Research requires the gold standard, double blind, where you, the subject of the research, and me, the doctor who administers it, neither one of us knows whether you're getting a placebo or the drug. That has to take time. It has to be done on small clinical samples and then larger populations before it can be accepted. Trump likes to say, we don't want the cure to be worse than the disease. Well, guess what? If you start taking these drugs right away, if you start taking, damn it, sorry about that. Technology has gotten in the way here. Let me shut that off. If you start taking a drug that hasn't been clinically tested and approved, you have a good chance of being seriously injured or killed because we don't know. And that the Warnings Doctor, my brand, we're here to give you information, not false hope. So look at it as a 6-month event at least. Look at it as there will be drugs to treat you, probably antiviral drugs sometime, maybe in 9 months or whenever the clinicals and the larger studies are completed. And then you'll see a vaccine a few months after that. And it'll be gone. And let's hope we learned a lesson. Let's hope we learned that was for this virus, this coronavirus. There's God knows how many lurking out there that could come. What we need to do is have the drug companies empowered to develop treatments now for the next pandemic. We were there 2004, and everybody pulled the plug on the budgets, and from 2004 until 2019, we didn't do it. We could have had treatments 10 years or more ago for this very COVID virus. We didn't do it. We now need to say, okay, this is what happened. Now we need to, at the end of the, I'm predicting probably by the end of the year, we'll have treatments and we'll be well on our way to a vaccine. But until then, folks, it's going to be a lot of hurt, and it's about us answering the moment. Who are we? Who are you? Who am I? How will we meet the times? Will we live this next year at worst in fear, anxiety, panic, or will we think about others? Will we think about the we and not the me? Will we reach out in hope to others and help others and ask people? You have a practice with personal injury lawyers. I heard a lecture on this, and it was all about people calling up their clients and saying, how can I help you? We're all in this together. Every business is taking a hit. No matter what the $2 trillion package gives for us in loans and grants and wish lists, we're all going to be hurting for the next year or so. So what we need to do is stop saying me, me, me. How many promotionals have you just seen? It's enough to make you sick. Buy this now. Get this restaurant gives it. Buy this product now. It'll say buy, 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 and it's in my face every day. That's people using the internet to quickly again go back to me, me, me. Buy my product. Give me cash flow. Give it to me. That's not what we should be doing.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting in the time frame that you're putting on this, because we went out for takeout last night to support our local businesses and sat on a park bench and had dinner. And I was looking around and I was thinking, most businesses, especially small businesses and, some of the smaller medium businesses, they're not building in prudent reserves. They don't have 6 months worth of expenses in the bank for something like this in case something happens. A lot of these businesses are not going to last 6 months or a year like this. So people are going to be hurt. It is a life-changing, hopefully once in a lifetime experience like this. And hopefully not anymore. But I think what you were saying, like there is a cure. This isn't. I read an article from a infectious disease doctor, and she said, this isn't the big one. This is one, in most cases, they are minor cases. Most people aren't getting a little sick, but it's the ones that are in danger that are getting really sick. And those are the ones that we need to be isolated for so we don't spread it to them. But this isn't the one that you get and there's no cure and it knocks you out, and in 4 days it kills you. So that's not where we're at. But we still need to be aware that people are getting very sick, and we need to do all of this together.
That's right, Dennis. Remember, again, on this note, all for one and one for all. How can I help you? How can I help you so you can help me? But I want to help you too. And to clients, I say this all the time. I've been calling right now. Every day I call 5 of my existing clients, and I just say, hey, are you hurting? Are you okay? What can I do to help you?
Yeah, that's great. I think we should all do that and just stay connected. Get the happy chemical, the serotonin going in your brain, where it's like we're not doomed. Like we still have those connections, and we can still reach out and see those connections. So we should do that. Stay active, stay productive. If you don't have anything going on, create opportunities. You said early on, it's like, learn something new, read a book, learn to dance. We're going to, one night, I think Friday night, tomorrow night, we're going to do an online painting class, canvas and cocktails. I don't know if do they have those in New York? It's you go paint and then you have cocktails. So I don't drink, but Amy likes to have a cocktail. And our son, Carson. Yeah, we're going to set up because we'll go do canvas and cocktails sometimes with Carson. And so we're going to set it up and we're going to paint. We have the paints here. We're going to go get the canvas, the things that we need. And we're going to create opportunities. We're going to create experiences. And I think that everybody needs to do that while we're in where we are. Because we're here. There's nothing we can do about this right now, especially on our level. I'm not going out and creating a vaccine. So until the people that have that capability and that power can do that, I have to do what I do.
That's what she meant when Pelosi said, the times have chosen us. What will we do? How will we rise to that occasion?
Right.
Great to be with you.
Yeah. Yeah, this has been an awesome talk. Thank you so much, Dr. Gerry. We've become friends now, and I'm so grateful for that friendship. And I think I'm going to be on your podcast.
All right. Warnings Doctor. The Warnings Doctor is going to host none other than you, Dennis. I can't wait.
I can't wait either. So thanks again, Gerry, and have a great day. Stay safe out there, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.